Hey there, welcome back. My name's Ryan. In this video, we're going to review this little tiny game, Fort. Now, Fort is a card game where you are collecting cards and trying to make your hand better and better and better. You're trying to build a fort and basically be the coolest kid on the block. If you don't know how it plays, we're going to start the video out with just a short explanation of the rules so the review makes a little more sense. If you already know how it works, of course, use the chapters below and skip ahead to the review. Okay, so this will definitely not be a complete overview of how to play Fort, but at least I want to give you a sense of how it works. So we have it set up here for a two-player game. Here in the middle, we're tracking victory points and also some bonus kits or some cards you can draft. Each player here has a player board that shows their fort level. Right now, you have no fort level. You want to get all the way to fort level 5. That's actually how you trigger the end of the game, and you build a fort level 5. We also have a place here to put some stuff, like some pizza or some toys. We also have a backpack we can hold some extra stuff in. Each player starts with a hand of 10 cards. They're going to draw their first 5. They're going to look at them and decide one of these 5 cards to play. Now, one thing that makes Fort unique is up on top here you have a public action. If you do this action, it's possible the other player could copy it. You also have a private action that only you can do. Let's say in this case this player chooses to play this card right here. Now, this card here has a times the number of squirt guns, meaning if you play multiple squirt guns, you can make this action stronger. And actually, you can even use your wild here and make it even stronger. So in this case, this player is playing the equivalent of 3 squirt guns. In each squirt gun, they can take something, a stuff. So in this example, let's say the player chooses to take 3 pizza. Now the bottom part of the card says you may trash cards in your hand to gain extra toys. Let's say this player knows his hand well and knows he doesn't like this card. He can dump it out of the game and gain a toy as well. Now, all these cards go into their played card hands, and the other player has a chance to follow this action. Now, they don't have a squirt gun, but let's say they want to use this wild right here and call it a squirt gun. They're going to play their wild, say it's a squirt gun, and they get the same effect as a public action, which was get a pizza for every squirt gun. In this case, this wild is 1 squirt gun. Now, this player played one of their 5 cards. They're not going to draw back up to 5. They're going to leave the 4 cards right here. We're going to look back to this first player. The first player has 1 card unplayed. They made this squirt gun strong by doing 3 cards at once. They also tossed a card from their game for the bottom action. The 1 card they didn't play with, your friend, the moles, you did not play with the moles this turn. They go out into your yard. Any friends you don't play with on your turn, these cards are all friends by the way. Anyone you don't play with, go out into your yard. Things in your yard are free to be stolen from the other players. Now, at the end of this player's turn, they're going to take 1 extra kid. So let's say they really want to have Penny here. They're going to take Penny and put it in their discard pile and refill this. And they'll draw their 5 cards they don't currently have in their hand. Now over here, this player is going to play this card right here, which says you may get a stuff. Then also it says you may trash a card in your opponent's yard. So they play this card right here. They're going to get 1 thing. Let's say they get a toy. They may also trash a card in their opponent's yard. So they're going to take this mole here and trash it. The moles are now gone from the game. Now this player used to choose a new friend. They could have chosen the moles, but they trashed the moles. So let's say they go with Tink right here. At the end of their turn, they have 3 friends they did not play with. They go to their yard, and now this player have a chance to steal one of those 3 friends on their following turns. Now the goal of the game is to get enough toys and pizza to upgrade your fort. You do this by playing a card with this fort plus symbol on. When you play this card, you may spend resources to upgrade your fort. The different fort levels have different resources costs, we won't get into today. But now you'll also see up here that there are victory point trackers. That's because some cards give you the option of gaining victory points for different conditions, so you can actually gain some throughout the game. When a player does finish a game by building the last fort level, you add the victory points from the fort level, in this case 23, wherever this player was. Let's say this player was on 16. They get bonus 16 plus 23. And you see where they end up after all the math is done with the points they already had plus that. Now, since this is kids, each player will also be acquiring throughout the game a secret made-up rules card. So the made-up rules cards will give you bonus victory points depending on some condition that the other players don't know about. At the end of the game, you'll reveal those and hopefully say, haha, I get 5 extra points for that. As you can probably tell by looking at the game, this game has a lot of cards with a lot of symbols. It actually comes to this big board here that shows you what all the symbols are and what they mean. And your job is to look at the cards and interpret what they mean based on things like times this, plus this, then this sort of symbols. Alright, so that's how it works. Let's talk about some positives here. Fort is a deck building game. Basically, most deck builders work the same way. You draw 5 cards, you decide what you're going to do with those cards, then you discard them. Next turn you draw cards. Whenever you run out of cards, you reshuffle the cards over here, you throw them back in. They all have this idea as the game goes along, as you saw, you're going to be gathering new cards, putting them in your discard pile, eventually shuffling those back in, putting them in your draw pile. So it's a lot like games like Dominion or other deck builders that have been around for a while. One thing Fort does really well is it incorporates a few of the things you can do in your turn. First of all, it has the whole idea of gathering resources. So on your board, you're trying to get more toys and more pizza. So you have this thing like from turn to turn that carries over, trying to get more stuff, which you then use to upgrade your fort. But also a few of the things you can do. Like the lookout is pretty cool. It's a decision that it does waste a turn for the most part, normally to put something in your lookout, but it adds a little bit of that. Is it worth it to get one thing in my lookout to kind of increase the strengths of other actions later on? Another kind of twist on deck building that fort does is it doesn't have values on the card. What I mean by that is this. Lots of deck builders like Dominion will have a value, 2, 3, 4, 5, a cost of the cards. At the end of your turn, you'll get so many buying power for that turn, and you'll choose what cards you want to buy. Fort makes all cards cost the same amount, which is really interesting. You're trying to choose between the 3 cards out there, or the 3 cards you can steal from your opponent. You're really just trying to say what card is the best card out there, not necessarily what can I afford. What ends up signs of deck builders happening is that there's a card out there that if you can afford 5, it's an amazing card. So if you have 5, you're going to take that card. And for kind of everything out there is always an option. And maybe it's not always obvious. Maybe you take a card from your opponent, but really it didn't hurt them that much. You just gave them fewer cards, and now their good cards come up again and again. So there's a really lot of thought that goes into the card drafting. Another really unique thing it does is the idea of following your opponent. So on your turn, you're paying attention to what your opponent does and seeing if you want to take that public action. That makes the cards really unique. So some cards are seemingly really powerful, but they have a lot of power in their public and their private action. By playing that card, you give your opponent a chance to follow you, basically doing the same action. Now they're losing a card from their hand, but often you want to do that to protect your cards anyway. So there's kind of this idea of maybe I want to pick up a few cards with skateboards on them because I see my opponent has a few cool skateboards, or I want to take this card so I can possibly follow the person that has squirt guns. So the following mechanism keeps players engaged on everyone's turn. Sometimes you might think, okay, I'm not going to do this because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to pick up, some pizza on their turn if they play this card again. So it really adds a lot of thought to what you do on your turn. It's also a cool way to protect your card. You might be struggling between, well, I want to save that card for my turn, but I could use this to follow. Then I play these 4 cards together and everyone's safe. Nothing can be stolen because I went through all my cards. Okay, so now for some flaws. The rulebook isn't great. You think it's good. When you first start reading this rulebook, you're like, oh, cool, it's cute, and it's written very succinctly. It's kind of that nice feel where you read a paragraph and you're just like, wow, that was the most condensed way to say that, which is a good thing for rulebooks to do. If a rulebook can say something in one great sentence, that's ideal. The problem is you start setting the game up and you go, oh, wait, what did it say about that? And you read the paragraph again and you realize, you can interpret that a couple different ways. I had that issue with several different things with this game where I kind of had to refer to an online frequently asked questions. It's bad when people are publishing frequently asked questions about games because people frequently have questions because the rulebook didn't answer them. So I found that kind of frustrating just by reading the rulebook itself. I just had trouble actually playing the game. I could have guessed. I could have done the whole thing where you say, well, it would make sense to do it this way, but I really want to know the right answer on some of these things. So it took some work to actually find the right rules and how I was actually supposed to play some of the games. So the rule book's kind of meh. Now, I don't know if this is a flaw or not, but the little special power cards you get throughout the game, you can kind of pick up cards that give you a unique endgame score, or pick up a card that gives you a unique power, maybe one-time use or persistent power through the rest of the game. They're very imbalanced. And I have a sense that this is on purpose. Since you get a reward for being the first one to upgrade your fort, you get to flip these cards over and pick which ones you want first and put the other ones back. So I feel like they might be unbalanced on purpose. But again, it's kind of weird when you first see it, but maybe it's intentional to kind of give you an advantage to rush that first fort build. But it's also kind of a flaw then because the first player clearly has an advantage in this game. At the end of the game, all the players get the same amount of turns. If you're the first player, the other players get to also take their final turn. If you build the last fort on your turn, they get one more turn. If you win first and they built the last fort level on their turn, you don't get another turn. So it does balance out in that sense. But the first player, the first person to build that last fort level, gets to get this little bonus 4 points at the end of the game. So It's an advantage, and you have a much higher chance of getting your first fort build done before your opponents. Because there's a pretty decent chance that even in your first turn or two, well, not first turn, but second or third turn, you're going to build a fort. In which case, you get first dibs at these special powers, which are really not equal. Some are much better than other ones, so it makes the first player advantage like a little stronger than I feel like it had to be. Okay, so now some things I like. I like that's a deck builder that has an added complexity I mentioned. I like that a few things. On your turn, you will not play through every card on your turn. You don't discard every card. Those ones go out into your yard, and your other opponents can steal your friends, and they can play them in their fort. That's like interesting in the game because there are some times where you don't have a clear option on your turn. You don't have a clear path. You're like, well, I want to play this card, but I'll have to put this one in the yard. I know he's going to steal this card. This is too powerful in combination with what he currently has. So I guess I'm going to take a less powerful turn to do this one here because you want to protect it. It's a little more thought provoking. It's a little more deep than most deck builders end up being. It also has a much better theme. I mean, you're kids, you're trying to impress your friends and build your fort level to a higher level. So it's just this bad trend where deck builders tend to be fantasy styles, Middle Ages or fantasy world kind of thing. So it's nice to play a deck builder with just a fresh theme where you're just kids eating pizza. Okay, so now for things I don't love about the game. So it looks cute. It looks fun. But it's a kind of complicated game. It's difficult because it has that appeal that people want to play. You say, hey, it's about kids on a fort, and you get to do this, and you're going to build your fort level up and get your pizza and your stuff, and that all looks like fun, and it all looks pretty simple. But then you have to hand each player, and you kind of have to hand each player this chart. These are all the different symbols. This is actually the biggest component in the game. It's just a big chart of all the things on the card, and the cards are fairly complicated. They'll say, if this, then this, or if this before this, then do this. So there's lots of turns until you're given 5 cards. Again, this isn't like lots of deck builders where you start out with 5 basic cards or 10 basic cards and you buy more unique ones. You shuffle all the cards together and deal 10 random cards. So first time I played the game, second time, third time, I don't know how many times it took me to get used to this, but you're given your cards and you look at your 5 cards and you literally will just go, okay, I don't know what any of these do, because there's not this clear, oh, these are the buying cards, these are the attack cards, and these are the, gain power cards. Some of them, some deck builders have that, there's 2 different variety of cards, or 3 variety of cards. This is every card will use some combination of any of these symbols on the public and the private option or actions. It's a lot. It's really overwhelming. The box also sets us 20 to 40 minutes, and I haven't found it to be true at all. I've tried to play this game from my end, just keeping it fun. Like, hey guys, let's not worry about who wins or loses. Just the moment it's my turn, I just play really quickly. It's not 20 to 40 minutes. I can't imagine it being that length at 4 players, but even at 2 players, it's nowhere close to 20 minutes. It's probably on the upper end of that 40 minutes with just a 2-player count, because again, every turn, you have to figure out what all the cards mean, and then after your turn, you just see on everyone else's turns you want to follow. There's a lot of counting. It doesn't feel near as light and as fun and as quick as I want it to feel. It feels a little slow. It feels a little thinky. It feels a little methodical for something like that. I feel like it should be maybe just a short, fun, light, cuter game. So I feel like if I could take Fort, cut out some of the complexity, cut out some of the symbols, which are just a little overwhelming, I feel like it might be a slightly worse game. It's a great game as it is, but it's a little hard to recommend. It's one of these games that even people who are good at board games probably need to play several different times to even know what's going on, because you don't go through all the cards every game. So you have all these cards, you have no clue what they mean. You get to the end of the game, if you play another round, you're probably going to see a lot of different cards you didn't see last time, and it's just a little overwhelming. It's not an easy game to get to the table. If you had someone else and you and them love playing this game and you just play it a lot, maybe you could get it down to like a 30-minute game where you just like quickly play your cards once you know it really well, but it's going to take several rounds for you to get to that point. So should you buy it? Let's start out with this. If you were into light classic games that have very low complexity, I don't think it'd be a great game for you. First of all, I had a lot of trouble against understanding what the rulebook wanted me to do. I read it again. I had to do some research online to figure out how to play the game. It's fairly complicated, And then even if you can understand the rule book, it's not completely clear. It's a little frustrating that. And then even when you do understand all the rules, once you get it all, then you actually start playing the game, you have to deal with all these symbols. It's not a great game for people who are not, if you don't know you're going to like this kind of game already, I'd say for light gamers, maybe not a great option. Now, if you know what you're getting into, you kind of hear everything I just said, you're like, okay, cool, cool. Yeah, I played Dominion, I played a lot of deck builders. I'm in for something more complicated. I want to see a cool twist on that. I think it's great. I think it's a fun kind of twist on a Dominion style game, a deck building game, because it incorporates things like I said earlier, the positives, the things I like about it. It takes deck building, but then you have some resource gathering, you have the fort building, you have a lookout mechanic, you have a stealing mechanic, you have no value on the card. So it does a lot of things that we expect from a deck builder game, but it does it in a new, fresh way. So it's great for that. Just it's a game you're going to need to play probably 3 to 5 times. For me, I feel like you're going to play it 3 to 5 times before you really, really get to where you like it. So it makes it not a great game for some board gamers who really want to play a game 2 or 3 times, have a great experience, be done with it. You're probably going to need to get several plays under your belt before you really connect with the game and like it. All right, so there are my thoughts on the game Fort. A game that I like quite a bit because I played it several times, but I also get why other people maybe aren't too fond of it when they first play it, and also kind of a hard game to get to the table. Let me know what you think in the comments below if you played it before, if you have any questions about the review. Also, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more reviews like this and some board game playthroughs.